Ken's feeding. Could you give me a clap?
Testing 1, 2, 3. You or camera, by the way? Hey, Towns of. I'm Sean Spiller, running to be the next governor of the state of New Jersey. And this is Local Leaders.
In 30 seconds or less, what's your backstory?
Wow. Well, listen, I'm a kid who came to this country as a young boy from Jamaica with my parents who lived all over the world and said, this is where we want to live. It's been a great experience, but right from go, I saw how hard it was for them to afford. So for me, it's becoming a teacher, being in my community, serving as a labor leader. It's all been how do you make things better for folks, and that's what this is about too. Running for governor, try and make things better for folks.
So what inspired you to run for governor?
I think it's a culmination of everything. It's a culmination of your lived experiences. It's a lot of it for me, seeing the struggles that people go through each and every day. I know the opportunity that's there, but it's so hard to achieve. So for me, it's just how do you connect those two things? And I think this is that moment where we're seeing the political bosses, the party bosses, their influence shrink. When you're seeing, what can happen when Wall Street, billionaires, others kind of really control things. There's a need right now. It's a really, really important moment, but we can make a difference right now.
What's your take on how New Jersey should handle congestion pricing?
Look, I think this is an example of, from an environmental perspective, you get it, right? From an understanding of if we can get New Jersey Transit and mass transit getting folks to where they need to be, makes sense. But right now, we've got folks who I'm talking about, right? That firefighter who's trying to get in on the off hours to get to the fire department, the teacher who's trying to get to school early, or the nurse who's got to get to the hospital. Folks who are already having a hard time affording things, we've got to make sure we've got a way to get them dollars back in their pockets and not have another burden. Look, the Wall Street folks who don't even know they're paying it, no big deal, but we've got to work with New York to say, how do we stop impacting hardworking middle-class folks?
How do you plan to protect small businesses from the impact of tariffs put in place by the current administration?
So listen, the current administration is causing a lot of damage to a lot of folks. It's whether it's our kids, and the dollars lost in education, whether it's our seniors, when we talk about Medicaid cuts, and or certainly, the instability that's created both in the market and for our small businesses with tariffs and just constantly changing policy. As governor, what you can do is show your commitment, your investment, certainly in our advancing technologies, certainly in terms of our small business here in New Jersey, saying as the federal government is playing these games and pulling back the dollars, often in grants that you need to get going, we're going to invest in those very things so you can make sure you succeed.
The current administration has already been combative with several state governors. How would you work with the federal government while standing up for New Jersey's values?
Well, let me just be very clear. I will never bend the knee. I will not kiss the ring, right? And I say it because a lot of these things are personal. We mentioned it just before, right? Like, I'm an immigrant who came to this country, and I get the process and how long that takes and what that means, but I never also had to worry that someone was going to pull that away from me because I said the wrong thing, right? I'm standing up for folks because that was me, right? That is me. When I talk about our kids, right? It's not who we are, right? Having kids stay home from school because they're afraid and they're worried about never seeing their parents again. It's not who we are, right? When we talk about, the small business that's struggling right now because they're stealing everything from us to give away more to billionaires, it's just not who we are. So as governor, I'm here to make sure we're supporting New Jersey residents, investing in New Jersey residents, protecting New Jersey residents, and that's going to be my focus.
If you had to choose between lowering income taxes or property taxes, which would you pick and why?
Yeah, look, I think the big burden right now on folks is property taxes, right? I say it as somebody who pays it, all the time. And certainly I understand the dynamic that exists, right? It took me 2 years to be able to afford my first place in Montclair, right? A multifamily home. But then you're paying those taxes and you're like, wow, that's hard. And then especially if you become, you're staying there and you're a senior and you're on a fixed income, how do you make it work, right? And a lot of it is based on the fact that we keep giving these massive tax cuts, income tax cuts to very wealthy folks. We let folks get away with not paying any taxes, right? These ultra-rich corporations, but yet to the average person, we're getting squeezed every which way. So we've got to focus on bringing down property taxes, and that means investing as a state.
Why should someone from South Jersey vote for you?
Well, look, I've been all over the state, right? I think I'm uniquely qualified in that I've been a mayor and a councilperson for 12 years. I understand the ability to kind of just get some things done. I understand what that means for my community in Montclair. But I've also served now for over a decade as a leader in the NJEA, right, representing educators statewide, been all over the state. And I understand that while our priorities are pretty much aligned, there's differences, there's nuances in community after community. And certainly having that perspective is important, but it also means there's an understanding there, a relationship there that certainly I'll build off as governor.
So we're going to just transfer over real quick. The next 15 questions are going to be rapid fire.
Okay.
They're meant to be off the cuff. no answering questions to questions. And the second you answer the question, I will ask the next one.
Okay.
Who is your favorite New Jersey musician?
It's funny, I'd say Springsteen, but I'll caveat that. I'm a big Dave Matthews fan. So, I see Dave all the time in Jersey, so I'm going to count that.
Taylor ham or pork roll?
Taylor ham, pork roll, egg and cheese. That's my final answer.
Rutgers or Seton Hall?
I'm a Rutgers grad, my friend, so are you?
Does Central Jersey exist?
It does exist. It does exist.
Is $6 too much for a latte?
Yes, it is. Well, I'll say this, and I'm a hot chocolate drinker, so not a big coffee guy, but $6 is too much for any kind of drink, so yes.
Giants or Jets?
I'm a Jets fan.
If you were stuck in a sinkhole, what Dave Matthews song would you sing?
I guess Gravedigger. I don't know.
Wawa or Quick Check?
More of a quick check guy.
Parkway or Turnpike?
I'm on both all the time, so I can't say one or the other.
Favorite New Jersey newspaper?
Harder question. I mean, obviously in this position, I kind of got to consume all of them, so I don't have a favorite.
What town in New Jersey do you think has the prettiest Main Street?
Montclair, New Jersey.
Pizza or bagels?
Both are great at different times. I mean, with my little guys at home right now, probably got to bring home the pizza.
How much should a pie of pizza cost?
Cheaper the better. I don't know, $12. $12.
Do you think pizza's too expensive?
Everything's too expensive. That's why I'm running for governor. Bring it all down.
Would you live at a New Jersey mall?
Would I live at the mall?
Yeah.
I'd probably try to buy way too much stuff. I guess you could. Be warm. A lot of cool things to look at. Hang out with folks. I'd rather not.
When you're heading down the shore, where would you go?
A lot of beautiful spots. Like I said, especially with little guys now, we're checking a lot of different beaches, but especially going through high school, did a lot of surfing, so always went to Manasquan. So still go to Manasquan.
What are your thoughts on Connecticut?
It's a great state.
The first person that said anything positive about Connecticut. I fucking love that. You're the only person who just gave the right answer. Give a shout out to your favorite restaurant.
Faubourg, Montclair, great stuff.
Do you have a favorite coffee shop?
I don't drink a lot of coffee, so it's a hot chocolate, which is mostly me making it. So no real favorite
If you
coffee
had
shop.
to go somewhere to get a hot chocolate.
I'd go to Paper Plane, probably Montclair.
Should New Jersey pump its own gas?
It's perfect the way it is right now.
What town in New Jersey do you think is the most underrated?
Underrated town. There's a lot of great small towns that you see all the time that I'm like, wow, this is so cute or this is nice. I still think, and not to be whatever, but I think Montclair's still underrated. I know it's pretty hot right now, but it truly is where the city meets the suburbs. It's got everything, and I think most folks, even though they know like Montclair's nice, they don't appreciate or understand like the stuff we have going on all the time. Best town and probably the most underrated.
Would you support expanding NJ Transit to more of the Jersey Shore and Atlantic City?
Yeah, listen, South Jersey is suffering from lack of mass transportation, right? So when we have this conversation, often we think of it in a North Jersey perspective. It needs to run on time, it needs to be safe, reliable, clean, all those things. But there's a whole segment of the state going, wait a minute, we don't even have mass transit, right? So absolutely that expansion, light rail, other pieces are key, and we've got to invest in that if we want to especially move towards the green economy, away from fossil fuels, et cetera, and more mass transit.
Is that something that you'd want to do in your first term?
Yeah, listen, I'd want to absolutely look at a transportation master plan. I think oftentimes we have these siloed conversations. Let's look at vehicular traffic, and let's widen roads, and let's look at those pieces. Then it's a mass transit conversation. An NJ transit. Then it's an environmental conversation. And, we bucket these things as opposed to saying, hey, this is really all one conversation. I'd love to look at a transportation master plan and see what that looks like, and then invest in ways to grow, certainly mass transportation as well. What
are your thoughts on beach badges?
Look, I understand it. Every shore community, has got to figure out a way to get the dollars to help clean the beach, to make it, upkeep, et cetera. And we were at a forum not that long ago, and somebody said beaches should be free, right? And I think it's indicative, though. I won't mention who it was, but he had the mic, one of my opponents, and was like, "Yeah, I'm all for free beaches." And I said, "You know what? I'm for free beaches too." But at the end of the day, that beach did not just become free, right? And what happens when you get these state mandates where there's no dollars behind it? What I know that means is now property taxes for everybody in that community to help clean up that beach just went up, right? And so what I'm committed to is, as a governor, investing in our priorities and not just saying something with an unfunded mandate that ends up costing us more.
With the Department of Education potentially being eliminated, how will you ensure this doesn't impact New Jersey's high-performing public schools?
Yeah, listen, we've got the best schools in the nation, and certainly we want to keep investing, and certainly in our communities where there isn't the support fully needed. But right now, we're facing a president of the United States who's looking to pull away $0.1 billion, right? Just last week, they sent out the memo, right? Unless you swear to not teaching anything DEI, we're going to pull your funding. I go back to, in one of the most diverse states in the nation, we need to celebrate that, understand that's our strength, that's our, that's what's going to keep us moving forward, that rich diversity. So understanding these losses are going to be there. Let me be clear. We cannot make up for this with a piecemeal approach, like find $1 billion here to help save our schools, find $1 billion over here for our seniors, find $1 billion over here for investing in the green economy or advancing clean energies. We've got to look at revamping our New Jersey tax structure, right? To say we know what they're doing. We have all read Project 2025. They're taking all of these dollars to give to billionaires, to give to ultra-rich corporations. We need to change our New Jersey tax code to go after those very same dollars to invest them in all of these programs. That's how we make sure we support our schools and students like mine, both my little kids at home and certainly the ones that I've taught, so it's about investing, but it's changing our tax structure to be able to do so.
What's your plan to make New Jersey more affordable for the middle class?
It's all about a few things. Number one, the biggest cost drivers, right? So let's look at housing. Housing is a huge one. We've got to make sure we've got homes that folks can afford and buy. And that means this, like for someone like me who took 2 years to afford my first home, it was a 2-family home, you can't buy it anymore. They're all bought out by LLCs, venture capitalists, right? If you do get in a bidding war, right, you're lucky enough to get it, your mortgage is out of control. I would create a period, a moratorium where we, the people, have the chance to buy homes first, not corporate entities, right? So it keeps it in the hands of us. Secondly, when we're talking about the other side of it, the rental piece, right, we've got to make sure, I passed the first ever rent control law in Montclair, so I understand a stopgap measure, but we've got to also look at it and say, as a state, we cannot leave our municipalities on their own to try and address the issue of housing that's affordable. That's what's happened. And what towns do is they go to developers and they say, build us these affordable units. Developer says, no problem. I want 400 high-end luxury units. I want a tax break. Give me that, and I'll build you this small number of units that are affordable. The community's up in arms, and it doesn't get us what we need. As governor, I'll invest dollars with those towns to say, no, we're not going to build that. We're going to build something much more in line with the community, maybe 100 units, but we're going to build 30 that are affordable. We're going to build 20 that are workforce housing, because there's plenty of folks who can't afford to live there but don't qualify. We're going to add senior, we're going to add veteran housing. You can layer this on, and then you get the rental units and you get the ownership that, again, allows more folks to keep their home ownership costs down. You've got to address the cost of quality early education childcare. I say it with that 7-year-old and 4-year-old. The average cost is $20,000 a year right now. We've got to get more folks doing that work. That means cutting through that red tape and change the way they're compensated. They're paid based on the attendance of the student right now. Nobody does that. Keep my little one home, they don't get paid. You've got to base it on enrollment. That allows more people to build a more stable model and more people doing the work. You've got to address the issues around healthcare, right? Healthcare costs go up 20, 25% year over year, and folks going, what's going on? They can't afford it. I'm really proud to be the only one running right now who's literally designed healthcare plans, got them through the legislative process, and has saved billions of dollars. And we know how to keep that going. It's going after the insurance companies, right, who don't let you see anything but keep raising our costs. It's going after some of that hospital billing, but that's how we work to ensure our healthcare costs stay down. And the last part of it is you got to look at the environment and energy costs. And those two things are related, right? We're all seeing that 20% increase in our bill going up yet again, shortly. And it's because we're dependent on big oil. And every time they think we're about to transition, right, they just raise the rates and say it's not the time, right? We've got to invest right now because there's a cost to not doing enough. Those 100-year storms are happening every other year. The cost to rebuild is happening. You can't afford your insurance. We've got to invest in these technologies. They're right for our future economically, but they're also right for our environment and for our bottom line dollars.
Should NJ state and local law enforcement assist in ICE raids?
No, I don't think so, right? I say it again as an immigrant, right? I think one of the most callous things this president ever did, right? You've just become the most powerful person in the world, and your first directive is, hey, armed agents, barge into places of worship, barge into schools, and grab kids out of their seats. And for me, I look back, I think of myself as a young boy, right? I think of me and my brother, right, sitting in class and saying, my God, at least we never had to worry that armed ICE agents were going to pull us out and say, you're not going to see your parents, right? That is a level of fear, and I think it's just intentional, and it's again, I think it's completely inappropriate. So for me, it's about standing up for people, not instilling fear in them. And so as governor, I'm going to stand up for every resident in this state.
What sets you apart from the other candidates?
I think it's a number of things. I think it's all of my lived experiences. Yes, it's being an immigrant, coming to this country, following and chasing that American dream, knowing what that's like, but also knowing the challenges. It's understanding the dynamic. Listen, I got to tell you, growing up as a black man in this country, kind of knowing what that's like as well as a perspective that I think is an important one. When I talk about having 2 young kids now, I'm thinking of the future, but I see what they're going through and I understand the costs associated and how to set them up for the future. It's big. I've had that opportunity, right, to be a teacher, give back in my community, but also to hear from the parents all the time of the difficult decisions they've had to make, right, supporting their families in one way versus another because they don't have the dollars that are there. I've been a labor leader, right, fighting for decent wages, but folks to have health care, all these other pieces that we constantly try to figure out but don't seem to be able to, get over the finish line. I understand that and have gotten that done. And yes, I've got that experience to be able to say, hey, as that labor leader, I've stood up to bullies like Chris Christie before, and I know how to stand up to a Donald Trump and still get things done. But you put all of that together, I don't think there's anybody that has that lived experience that's going to be fighting for us the way I am, because everyone else is either picked by the party bosses, they are funded by Wall Street, they are funded by big developers, they are funded by the usual big money, big power that always funds elections. And this is that rare opportunity where we can say, no, we're going to support ourselves. We're going to support somebody whose life has been like my own and who's going to be fighting for me with every decision that I make.
Will you continue to protect access to reproductive health care in New Jersey, including safe and legal abortion?
Absolutely. We've got to protect the access. And also we've got to understand that for folks who are coming here, one of the big pieces is data and information, right? Because whether it's a doctor that performs a service or somebody who may come in state and leave, there's plenty of states that are trying to go after folks, right? So there's a lot of layers to that, to making sure we're protecting that access. But it's not just that access, it's protecting folks even after they've gotten that access. And certainly as governor, I'll do that.
Can you share something Governor Phil Murphy has done that you disagree with?
Yeah, I don't think he's focused enough on the things that I started with before, right? And again, I think Governor Murphy's done a great job in many ways, and I applaud him for it. When I look at it and say, look, at the end of the day, understanding the complexities around trying to be able to afford that first home, it's just probably not his lived experience, right? Knowing his dynamic. When I talk about those healthcare costs that are going up, and we're constantly looking for ways, and there are right there, sitting on the table right now, ways we can save hundreds of millions of dollars. Not happening, just some of it's going like, why not? I don't fully understand it, but maybe because it's, again, not something that would be affecting, his family or an experience he's had. So there are things I think that we can do much better on, and certainly those are the priorities that I'm focused on as governor.
If you're choosing to be the next governor, what's the most important thing you hope to accomplish?
It's, at the end of the day, making New Jersey more affordable, but it's through changing systems, right? Because I can tell you the system will reset if it is given the opportunity. And by that I mean power will, grab onto power again. And if it does, right, the system works to make sure those who are in power, those who want the dollars, continue to be successful and find loopholes, all the other things. If we're going to institute these changes to make New Jersey more affordable and we want them to be lasting, we've got to change the systems that they're all wrapped up in to make sure we have lasting change.
Perfect. That's it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thanks again for the invite. To get the very latest on what's happening in your town, download the Towns app. In your, Towns of app. Towns of. You'll get it one of these times. It's funny when I do the NJ stuff. Like we got the teleprompter, we're moving, and like sometimes and then other times.
I get you.
Yeah, all right, Towns of app.
We'll get a teleprompter for next week.
This is a good move. Towns of app below, right? Is what you're doing. Towns of app below. Okay.